Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge, a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services focusing on the Port of Anchorage and the major commercial participants in the Cook Inlet region, providing customers with marine services specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'm hosting tonight's show. On the the morning map here, we have areas of extreme fire dangers here for the upper Yukon Valley, southward through the central interior, Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, southward across the Alaska Range into the Copper River Basin. That for the dry conditions, the low humidities in the teens and 20% range. And the south winds 15 to 25, gusts to 30 miles an hour along the Copper River, and gusts to 40 miles an hour or more here through the Alaska Range from the south and southeast, and pretty breezy conditions up into the Fort Yukon area as well. And on the breakup map for May 15th, you can see the Yukon's open here from actually upstream of the Porcupine River all the way down here until you get to the lower stretch, and then at some open areas, just chunks of ice coming down the river, and then out toward Amonic, still frozen there, and up the Kobuk River open now, and the Koyukuk River pretty much open all the way out as well. Still the Noatak River has yet to start any movement of the ice yet, at least up through today. And for the satellite imagery, you can see a lot of clear skies along the southeast coast, but there was an area of low clouds hugging the coastline, keeping it in the 50s at Sitka, same thing at Yakutat, all the way back into Prince William Sound. Shows up a little better here, but this actually extending all the way down the coastline there. But a lot of sunshine over the inland areas. Pretty good sunshine as well here through the eastern interior and central interior in the afternoon. Allowing temperatures to rise into the 60s to mid 70s in some locations, but this frontal boundary here across southern Cook Inlet, keeping the rain in across the Kenai Peninsula areas, Kodiak Island, getting a little more showery this afternoon after picking up about 1.19 inches of rain in the last 24 hours. Chignik and the Alaska Peninsula had about 0.8 of an inch, and King Salmon picking up just under ½ an inch of rain. So a much wetter May down in this part of the state than what was seen a year ago in May, when it was very warm and dry for about the entire month. Otherwise, farther to the north, clouds streaming northward there, and about 1 to 2/10 of an inch fell across the Yukon and Kuskokwim deltas, all the way up to the southern Seward Peninsula areas, drier to the north there, and a lot of clouds up along the Arctic coast with those winds coming down, gusting as high as 45 miles an hour this morning here on the eastern Arctic coast, with those all diminishing, much lighter winds on the west side as well. Out in the Bering Sea, just a lot of clouds here with a low pressure area south of the Adak area, and that's pushing a front right through here, and some rain across that area, spreading up in toward the eastern Aleutians this afternoon. Eventually that'll move up into the Pribilof Islands and toward the southwest coast. On the chart, there's that system right there with the warm front spreading some moisture in toward the Nikolsky area this afternoon. Low pressure keeping it kind of cloudy and unsettled here over Bristol Bay, with scattered showers in that area. Showers all through the western interior with mostly cloudy skies. Dry conditions, variable clouds through the central interior. Mostly sunny here in the east side, all the way down through the Copper River Basin, and then most of the Panhandle sunshine. You can see now that low cloud area I spoke of right along, hugging the coastline all the way back across the Gulf of Alaska into Prince William Sound, across the southern Kenai Peninsula areas there. And this front now getting north of Kodiak, so again the rainfall changing a little more into showers, more intermittent, and that extending back across the Alaska Peninsula. For tonight, that front really weakens and moves northeastward. Areas of rain from the Kuskokwim Valley up across the Seward Peninsula and Norton Sound area, and then back down along the coast. Some scattered showers here over northern Bristol Bay and into the southern Kuskokwim Valley, and also along the western Cook Inlet areas. to the Alaska Range there. Rain here on the southern and western portions of Prince William Sound and the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula. And as this remnant weakening front moves through, there's a chance of showers over northern Cook Inlet after midnight tonight, lasting into early tomorrow morning. So it could get a little moisture into the Anchorage area, possibly again after midnight tonight. Otherwise stays fair, variable clouds, especially along the coast here of the Panhandle. Dry and mostly clear. So those gusty winds keeping the fire dangers high through the Copper River Basin and along the Alaska Range, but lighter winds to the north. That'll lead to some patchy low clouds and fog up along the entire stretch of the Arctic coast, and then just a lot of clouds here in the western portions, and that front spreading rain across the eastern Aleutians this evening begins to change over to showers as the front pushes northeastward, pushing the rain into the Alaska Peninsula. Those gusty small craft advisory winds here extending back even up toward the Pribilof Islands. Look for some rain and fog moving in tonight with showers following in behind. And then for tomorrow, another sunny day here along the southeast coast. Those areas, low clouds and fog right along the coastline. Day much like today down in that area. All of the shower activity will stay over into Canada, at least for another day. Otherwise, another sunny, warm day. Temperatures in the 60s to mid 70s. In fact, eastern 40-mile country pushing up toward 80 degrees tomorrow afternoon. And then isolated showers forming along the western Alaska Range here down to the Aleutian Range, Kamishak Bay. Chance of some showers continue there, but should be mostly sunny afternoon here for northern Cook Inlet and the Kenai Peninsula. Mostly sunny Prince William Sound after the morning low clouds burn off. The Arctic coast, still light variable winds, mostly clear skies on the eastern Arctic coast and North Slope, and not too bad here back to the west, but chance of showers there for the western Arctic coast, and this low over the Chukchi Sea will keep a chance of showers going for the Seward Peninsula, Kobuk, Selawik Valleys, Noatak Valley areas up to the western Brooks Range, and then this front pushing moisture and gusty southeast winds, south to southeast winds into the Alaska Peninsula, right up to the southwest coast there. A chance of rain increases throughout the day for Nunivak Island and Bethel down to Togiak over to Dillingham, probably not reaching King Salmon until tomorrow night. And then a lot of showers back out to the west with that low center 991 millibars there, just north now of Adak and Atka. And the outlook for Sunday, that front pushes northward and eastward here, lining north-south, kind of parallel with the wind flow now, so stretching out. Rain from the Alaska Peninsula across Bristol Bay. Again, that looks like periods of rain across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta areas right up through the Seward Peninsula. Isolated showers up over the Noatak Valley, and also some isolated showers possible over Kamishak Bay, Kodiak Island, and up in the Kuskokwim Valley. This low now center drifting northward here just west of the Pribilofs keeps scattered showers and mostly cloudy skies in across the Aleutians, but improving here over the western Aleutians. Higher pressure ahead of that next storm coming up off to the southwest. Otherwise, high pressure over the Gulf of Alaska will make for some nice northwest breezes there of about 20 to 25 miles an hour all along the southeast coast. Lighter over the inland areas. Chance of some showers, isolated showers in the afternoon there over the southern southeast coast. Otherwise dry all the way up along into Prince William Sound. Look for a sunny day Sunday for south central Alaska. Just some variable clouds over western Cook Inlet with sunshine northward through the interior valleys again. Temperatures in the 60s to 70s, in some cases maybe even up toward 80 degrees over the 40-mile country again. And variable clouds, patchy low clouds and fog along the Arctic coast and western North Slope. Otherwise pretty good up there with the winds remaining light. And for temperatures this afternoon down that way along the Panhandle, 54 at AKwx with 60 degrees at Annette. These are all 4 o'clock readings. 64 at Petersburg, or that's Wrangell. 68 though in Juneau, one of the warmer locations there. Skagway 61. 49 in cloudy skies in Yakutat, cloudy and 51 in both Cordova and Valdez there, with 69 degrees at Gulkana. Warmest in the state today, 75 at Northway, while Fairbanks had 73 degrees, 72 gusty southeast winds there for Delta, and 62 degrees with more clouds over toward Tanana. Bettles up to 63, 64 at Fort Yukon, and 61 at Anatuvik. On the Arctic coast, getting above freezing there on the east side, and also the west side, 34 there at Dead Horse, 30 degrees at Barrow, 35 over at Wainwright, and Point Lay had 42. Point Hope, half mile in fog, and the ceiling at 300 overcast. So definitely some low IFR conditions there with 37 degrees, but Kotzebue up to 50 and Deering at 44. South of there, Golovin at 45, Nome at 40 degrees, Tin City and Gamble both at 34, and down into the Kuskokwim Valley, McGrath 67 degrees today, 57 at Sleepmute, 58 at Bethel, mid-40s out along the coast, but Ammonix stuck at 39 degrees, and 42 at St. Paul, 46 at St. George, and temperatures along the Alaska Peninsula in the upper 40s and lower 50s, all the way up toward King Salmon. They had 49 also at Unalaska, and lower to mid-40s out over the central Aleutians, 39 degrees for Shemya. Lows tonight in the 40s there for the southeast coast, upper 30s to lower 40s here through the southeast interior, with lower 40s over south central Alaska. Same thing here for the Bristol Bay area, lower to mid 40s for the southwest interior areas. Warmest conditions in the 40s to maybe lower 50s here over the west central interior, and then back down into the upper 20s to lower 30s for the Arctic coast and portions of the North Slope, with lower to mid 40s here up over the northwest. And for the highs tomorrow, getting back up toward 80 degrees there at Eagle, otherwise high 60s to lower 70s here for the eastern interior, mid 60s to near 70 for the central interior, and then much chillier back to the west with a lot more cloud cover and showers with 40s to lower 50s out through here, lower 50s over the southwest, and Bristol Bay mostly in the 40s. All the way down the Alaska Peninsula, lower 40s for the central Aleutians and upper 30s for the Pribilofs. Looking at flying weather, good VFR for most of the southeast coast tomorrow. Got marginal VFR with the remnants of that frontal boundary coming eastward from Cape Yakataga across Montague Island and the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula. Some of that could slip on up into Passage Canal, especially in the morning hours, but generally VFR here will be VFR for southern Alaska all the way up to the Brooks Range. Marginal VFR in the increase on the eastern Arctic coast, with IFR over the central and western coast, extending down through the Bering Strait, western Seward Peninsula, IFR for St. Lawrence Island, into the northern Bering down to about St. Paul Island. And marginal VFR along the coast there with the IFR on the west side of Nunivak Island, marginal VFR here, southwest Kodiak Island, the Alaska Peninsula, all the way out across the Aleutians to Kiska, and a little bit of a break there over Shemya and Attu. Taking a look at the passes for Anaktuvik, VFR conditions, north and south entrance, either approach for Adigan as well, open, and VFR for Lake Clark and Merrill. Rainy, open with VFR flying conditions. Windy, also VFR tomorrow. Isabel, VFR with Mentasta looking pretty good. VFR conditions there as well. And for Tanita, VFR, both entrances. Portage, possible marginal VFR in the eastern entrance. Otherwise, VFR, and that'll probably break out in the late morning hours there. And for Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels showing 8,000 feet here over the southeast coast, all the way up into the eastern interior, cooling off here with the cooler surface temperatures, 2,000 to 4,000 feet there across the Seward Peninsula, and dropping a little below 4,000 feet over the southwest interior in Kodiak Island, and even cooler back out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Icing threats, that next system pushing northward and eastward, occasional light to isolated moderate rime icing here for the Alaska Peninsula, extending up to Togiak Bay, possibly in toward Dillingham, and then back out to the west toward Macoriac, and hit and miss stuff here over the eastern Aleutians, more of a mixed condition in the showers there, and then also some icing below 11,000 feet there of the isolated moderate rime, or possibly mixed varieties for the western Arctic coast, southward across the Noatak Valley, Kotzebue Sound, Seward Peninsula, and even Norton Sound down to the south coast there. Looking at the winds aloft, there's that low with that moisture moving northward, and southerly winds 50 to 70 knots here across the western interior, but upper high pressure keeping it warm and dry over the central and eastern interior all the way down south central Alaska and into the Panhandle. And of course, that's going to keep all that moisture out to the west through the weekend. Looking at 9,000 foot winds, 10 knots across Cook Inlet and the Kenai Peninsula from the south-southeast, only 0 to 5 knots here across the Panhandle, light variable winds in across the southern and eastern interior, picking up to about 15 knots with the stronger winds. Southerlies here 30 to 35 knots through the western interior, 5 knots now on the central and eastern Arctic coast, but maybe up to 20 on the western side there, and kind of a southerly wind 15 to 25 knots in advance of this low over the central Aleutians, and about the same wind flow at 3,000 feet northwest, or light and variable here over the Panhandle, northwest 15 to 25 along and just off the coast of the Panhandle. Light variable winds here over the southeast interior, southerlies up to 40 knots across the Alaska Peninsula and 25 knots there, Kamishak Bay into the western Alaska range, with pretty good breezes, 35 knots all the way up across Kotzebue Sound toward the Noatak Valley areas, and then just 5 to 10 or 0 to 5 on the eastern Arctic coast, 30-knot winds from the eastern Aleutians up across the Pribilof, wrapping back around in across Shimia and Attu. Taking a look at turbulence, maybe a little bit of isolated light to moderate chop there along the coast of Prince of Wales Island, otherwise pretty smooth here all along the Panhandle through the eastern interior areas, and then a big swath of moderate chop, occasional widespread here over the western interior all the way down across Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula. Eastern Aleutians, occasional moderate chop below 6,000 to 8,000 feet, also the west central Aleutians as well. And after hangar flying, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mary O'Connor, and I'm with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, and I also manage the Aviation Safety Program at the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health here in Anchorage. This evening, we are happy to have Paul Suffren with the National Transportation Safety Board on our show. Paul, welcome to Hangar Flying.
Thank you, thank you.
Paul is a meteorologist, or weather guy, at the NTSB. He is part of a team that is in Alaska to look at issues with the system that is used to collect and disseminate information about weather. It's used by pilots, and the implications that these weather reports have are tremendous, and they can be used all over the weather system. So, Paul, can you start by telling us where these pilot reports, or PIREPs as they're called, are initiated and how that's done?
Absolutely, Mary. They can start mainly in one of two areas. The first area being human initiated, or the pilot in the cockpit, and they call to air traffic control and let them know that they're having weather conditions, whether that's turbulence, icing, any number of areas there, cloud bases, and air traffic control will take that information down, and then they'll pass it along in the system there. Another main area that PIREPs can be valued and given to weather forecasters is automated conditions there, and that's on flights that have those instruments procured on the airplane, and then that instrumentation takes down automated pilot reports such as temperature, dew point conditions, relative humidity, and then that can be passed along to weather forecasters as well.
And those types of aircraft, we're talking 737s, Boeings, Airbuses, not your average Super Cub?
Yeah, typically for the automated reports, those will be the larger aircraft or the larger operator that'll be passing along those PIREPs. So, and a lot of times they'll have those pilot reports that'll cost money to get that information. While the human-initiated one, that one will pass through the system as free.
Okay. Do individual pilots file pilot reports, or is that something a company can do?
Typically, it's a human-initiated, or just the GA pilot out in the bush or flying along, just giving flight information when they're talking to air traffic control, whether they're VFR or IFR, and they're giving that information there. So typically, it's just a pilot, so we don't see too many reports from companies.
Okay. So once a general aviation pilot enters a pilot report into the system, how does that get to the meteorologist?
So once a pilot enters that information into the system, it goes to air traffic control, and from air traffic control, it'll filter. Eventually, they'll type that system into basically an internet portal, and then that internet portal will take that information and it'll go pretty much immediately over to the National Weather Service forecasters on the floor, where they're doing their weather observations and weather forecast, and then that they can view that information quite quickly once it goes through, once the pilot says it, and once air traffic control goes through their area. So.
And this sounds like a great idea if it's all flowing smoothly. I just want to take a second here to ask if a person has a problem with the system, be it a pilot or an air traffic controller or even a meteorologist at the Weather Service. I understand that you have started an email where people can give comments about the PIREPs, and that's part of what you're doing here. But if people don't have the opportunity to talk to you while you're here, they can do that by email.
Absolutely. We've set up an email account, piratcomments@gmail.com, and they're able to give us information through that email account, and we'll take that information into account for this this report and look at any information that comes in for those folks that want to discuss that. So.
Okay, great. So what do the meteorologists do with the information once they get it?
They do a lot of things with pilot report information. First of all, they record that observation. Is that fitting the forecast that's out there? If it's not fitting the forecast that's out there, how can, as meteorologists, do we need to make the area that we're warning for bigger or smaller? We were just over at the Weather Service yesterday, and they brought up several examples where they've made advisory or warning areas smaller based on the pilot reports that they were getting, whether it's a GA pilot or whether it was a commercial pilot, and then areas where they've had to expand their forecast areas. So that information is extremely valuable in making areas both smaller and bigger for warnings and advisories to get back to the pilot community.
Wow. So these reports can be very helpful to pilots on the ground that may be planning a trip, as well as pilots in the air.
Absolutely, and in it, not only that, but weather researchers will use this information to tailor the forecast models that go to the pilots, and then that will get back to the pilot eventually through new graphics. So.
Okay, great. Well, we look forward to having you on our next show and learning more about PIREPs.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for supporting Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and Alaska Public Media. And thank you for tuning in to Hangar Flying. Please remember us with the Pick, Click, and Give program with the Permanent Dividend Fund. Until next time, fly safely.
Welcome back. Well, this area of sea ice here continuing to move northward and a little to the northwest, and with those persistent southerly winds, that's going to continue to move in that direction for the next, well, into the middle of next week, and of course continue to diminish in size as it slowly dissolves. And for the southwest coast, or for the southeast coast, northwesterly winds 20 knots, lighter up along the north coast, more westerly. Southerlies 15 in the afternoon for northern Lynn Canal. Otherwise, for the central and southern inside waters, about 15 knots from the northwest with seas in those areas at about 3 feet, running 6 to 8 feet out along the coast. And then on Sunday, pretty consistent wind flow here. Northwesterlies 20 all along the coast there with seas running 7 to 8 feet. Northwest 15 over the inside waters with 3-foot seas. Lynn Canal, again, afternoon winds south at 15 knots, especially northern Lynn Canal, seas at about 3 feet. And for Prince William Sound, southerlies at 10 tomorrow, southwest 10, just barely a breeze there for Cook Inlet, northern Cook Inlet. Small craft advisories for Kamishak Bay, as well as the east side of Kodiak Island here. Light variable winds for the western North Gulf Coast, more westerly at about 15 for the central coast. And taking a look at Sunday, westerlies up to 20 knots here for the North Gulf Coast, southwest 15 Prince William Sound, same thing for Cook Inlet. And southeasterlies at about 20 knots here for the Barren Islands up in toward Kamishak Bay, south 20 knots there for Kodiak. And for the Bristol Bay forecast tomorrow, southeast 25 knots, got small craft advisories here in all the marine zones for the Alaska Peninsula, south and southeasterlies. And then for the outlook for Sunday, small craft advisories now here for southeast winds southwest of Kodiak Island up across Bristol Bay. And behind the fronts, more southerly in direction and lighter, about 20 knots. Higher gusts there, particularly for Cold Bay. And for the eastern Aleutian, south to southeast, 20 to 25 knots tomorrow. Those seas running 6 to 10 feet. And then kind of a northwest wind here west of Adak, 20 to 25 knots on out towards Shemya. And the outlook for Sunday, light east winds here for the western zone. and west to southwest 15 to 20 knots for the central Aleutians, and south to southwest 15 to 25 knots for the Fox Islands. And going to the southwest coast, 20 to 30 knot winds with those small craft advisories here to the south of Nunivak Island there toward Kamishak Bay. Easterlies at about 20 knots for the Pribilofs. Northern Bering Sea northeast at 15. Southerlies 15 for St. Lawrence Island with 3-foot seas. And taking a look at Sunday's forecast, small craft advisories or brisk wind advisories here for the areas north of Nunivak Island to St. Lawrence Island for 25 knot winds, and southeast winds at about 20 knots for the Pribilofs, east 20 for the Northern Bering Sea. Up along the Arctic coast there on the central coast, easterly winds 5 to 15 knots all along the coastline here, a little more southeast toward Demarcation Point, but easterlies at 20 knots here for the Cape Lisburne, Point Hope areas, and then just southeast at 15 there for the southeastern Chukchi Sea area. And then in that Wales to Cape Thompson zone, southeast 15, no change, but picking up brisk wind advisories here for the central and the entire western Arctic coast, but lighter on the east side. Southerlies at about 20 knots with 15 knot winds over toward Kaktovik and Demarcation Point. Looking at tonight again, no change for the Panhandle. Low clouds and possible areas of fog right along the coastline, but generally fair. Gusty winds, high fire dangers this evening for the Copper River Basin and just about all the central and eastern interior up across the upper Yukon Valley to the Brooks Range. Patchy areas of low clouds and fog with lighter winds along the Arctic coast. Rain for the Seward Peninsula down along the southwest coast with showers behind the front here into northern Bristol Bay. Rain sliding northeastward here from the eastern Aleutians to the Alaska Peninsula, which tomorrow will push eastward and up to the southwest coast. Scattered showers over the northwest interior, sunny and warm again both tomorrow and Sunday. Temperatures in the 60s, 70s to near 80 on the east side. No change for the Panhandle. Maybe some showers showing up over the southern areas, and that's about it. Have a great week.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.